Most of you probably know that I've been working on COVID Nosode for last almost 2 years and longer. Many of you have already listened to some of the webinars I've given. But today I'm quite excited to see physical faces instead of digital faces that we have been seeing all this while in the webinars. So we are going to talk about certain serious aspects of COVID Nosode. We gained many things which I would like to share today. We missed also a lot of things which also I would like to share, and I also would like to share why. We homeopaths have been always believing that homeopathic nosodes and other medicines have preventive roles in epidemics, endemics, and possibly pandemics. This has remained largely a hypothetical belief because we do not have enough evidence to prove that homeopathic medicines have preventive roles. We have more of clinical experiences scattered from different parts of the world. And the question here is it a wishful thinking that the nosodes have preventive medicines, a preventive role, or it is a reality? So that takes us to the story of COVID-19 nosode. It has been technically named as Biosimcovax. So I'll use these two words synonymously, Biosimcovax or COVID-19 nosode. The story is 2 years old. Before that, I have spent almost 20 to 25 years in nosode research. So that helped us a lot to make this COVID nosode in a very short time, at the right time, when the pandemic just began. We'll talk briefly about the development of the nosode. The nosode was developed at Mumbai's Hafkin Institute, which is known to produce various vaccines, including the BCG vaccine, MMR vaccine, and others for the entire country. We have a team of scientists, vaccinologists, immunologists, etc. in place. And the good thing is that we have been working with Hafkin Institute for last almost 10 years and have developed several nosodes. So the scientists at Hafkin Institute, they know about homeopathic nosodes. One of the nosodes which we developed was Mycobacterium tuberculosis nosode at Hafkin Institute. Some of you must be aware. It required a series of protocols and SOPs and a lot which I not go into the details, but we of course had ethical approvals in place. We had BSL-2 plus practice protocols practiced, the gene sequencing, etc. was done. Why I'm saying is because making a nosode is not that easy that you take the saliva or the sputum of a patient suffering with the infection and just potentize it in your lab. It doesn't work that way. That used to happen, or it used to work 130 years back when the initial homeopathic nosodes were made. Now the technology has changed, the microbiology has changed. So there are newer methods. We have to use what is called as BSL-2 kind of a facility to manage, to rather handle the organisms. So these all were in place when we made this nosode. It underwent, after making the nosode, it underwent what is called as animal toxicity study. And as per the OECD guidelines. Anybody knows about OECD guidelines? No worries. I also didn't know anything about this until 2 years back when some experts, they mentioned that OECD guidelines must be followed for homeopathic nosodes to examine if these medicines are safe in animals. And of course, it was a process. We followed these guidelines and proved that the COVID nosode is absolutely safe in animal model. Post which we conducted phase 1 trial on healthy volunteers to see it is safe or not. In this study, we not only found that the COVID nosode was safe in healthy volunteers, but we also had some very interesting findings, which I'll talk little later. The healthy volunteers developed certain immunomodulating changes. They developed what is called a CD4 count. They had an increase in the CD4 count in almost 90% of the volunteers. And that was suggestive of an activation of T cell immunity. Besides that, we also conducted a phase 2 trial, and the phase 3 trial is currently going on. We also conducted a drug proving. So practically we did everything that a new drug in homeopathy should require to do. I'll briefly talk about the highlights of the outcomes. we had some unprecedented findings which supported our belief that homeopathic medicines have some potential role as preventive measures. In our phase 2 trial, which was conducted as a randomized placebo-controlled study on 2,233 high-risk individuals in a BMC-run quarantine facility in Mumbai, and it was a placebo-controlled study, probably the first kind of a placebo-controlled trial with Nosode in the world, and which has shown that COVID Nosode has 62% efficacy over placebo. This is a published paper, so it's in the most eminent homeopathic peer-reviewed publication that we have. Besides that, we also observed that the volunteers had an activation or increase of IL-6 as the primary action of the Nosode, which eventually led to IFN gamma, interferon gamma activation, and CD4 increase. This is clearly suggestive that homeopathic Nosode has immunomodulatory effects. Now this was very interesting, but it was not a surprise to us because we have shown in the previous studies with HIV Nosode, with cancer Nosode, with hepatitis C Nosode that homeopathic Nosodes have various immunomodulatory effects. But this particular study once again reinforced our understanding that Nosodes are there to bring immunomodulatory changes in the body. Now, this is the most important outcome or a question or an observation of our studies. We all believe that immunization is done by vaccination. And vaccination is the only way to immunize other than getting a natural exposure to the disease. And that's why we believe that immunization is equal to vaccination. But there must be another way of immunization. There could be another way how we could induce an immunity to protect against infection. And in our study, we saw that the COVID Nosode has shown that kind of immunization against infection by producing 62% efficacy. Here I would remind you that this happened at a time when there was no vaccine available in the world. And as per the WHO, any vaccine, if is capable of producing 50% efficacy against placebo, then also should be recognized by the WHO. And we had 62% efficacy. So we have enough reasons to believe that homeopathic medicines have capacity to bring immunization. These are the 3 published papers. You can Google them. They are available. I will not go into the detail. So what did we gain in this entire exercise of 2.5 years? What did we gain? We produced Biosim Covax Nosode on 22nd May, so exactly 2 years ago from now. And that was the first homeopathically prepared Nosode in the world for COVID. And just to remind you that the first COVID vaccine was produced on 24th of June. So the homeopathic Nosode was brought to this world way before the COVID vaccine came to existence. And the homeopathic students must know that this is not happening for the first time. The homeopathic Nosode lycinum, that is hydrophobinum, was made in 1834 by Constantine Herring. And the vaccine came 50 years after that. So we have a heritage in homeopathy to bring Nosodes way before even the organisms were even identified. So we have to carry on this heritage even further. Another very important thing what happened is that this Nosode study allowed us to understand how homeopathy works by bringing certain changes in the immunological pathways. Now this was a major understanding for us through this study. And this obviously brings us and opens up new windows to a huge amount of research in future. If we carry out more research in this direction with this Nosode and many more Nosodes or many more medicines in future in a similar direction, then we can have a real scientific facelift for homeopathy. So this was the story of COVID Nosode. The question is, why was not concluded yet? People are asking, why? What happened to your Nosode? You've been working on Nosode कभी मिलेगा? आज भी मुझे 3 लोगों ने पूछा यहाँ पे कब मिलेगा, कब मिलेगा? I said, look, please understand, as a senior homeopathic practitioner, you must know that when the new drug is developed, it is not made available just like that. It requires a process of approval. And we all homeopaths must know that there is a process. Or rather, there is no process in place in India. That's the reason we have a lot of challenges, which I'll talk briefly. So why was it not concluded yet? Why was it not made available, in spite of having shown the efficacy? In this journey, I happened to meet a lot of officials, regulatory people, ministers, including the health minister. And in my communication with the health minister, when he listened to the story of the Nosode, he said, Dr. Shah, what seems is that the Ministry of Ayush has knowledge about homeopathy, and the CDSCO, that is DCGI or something like an FDA, has the power to approve it, but does not have the knowledge. So Ayush has knowledge but no power. Ministry of Health has power but no knowledge. This is the tragedy that we have, and that is one of the major reasons that today, in spite of having Nosode developed and scientifically researched, we still do not have it in our hands. There are lack of most important thing which I want to convey today to everybody, which I have been talking for last almost 10 to 12 years in various forums, is that we do not have guidelines for new homeopathic drugs in India. And I don't mind repeating this statement one more time, that we do not have guidelines for developing and approving new homeopathic drugs in this country. And that is the biggest reason why we have not been able to introduce new drugs in the system of homeopathy. New major drugs, I'm using the word, new major drugs have never come to homeopathy in the last 50 to 60 years. And hardly any Nosode has ever come in the entire world in last 100 years, except oscillococcinum. Finally, the question is, who approves it? We have been struggling from door to door. I'm knocking each and every door in this country. And who approves? Ministry of Ayush will approve. CDSCO will approve. Does Ayush have powers to approve? These are the questions which we realized. So as I said, typically, this virus has taught us a lot of things, and the virus has also made us realize many things. And that homeopathy, CDSCO has no homeopathy expertise. As I said, Ayush has knowledge but no powers. CDSCO is a new word for many, but we must know that is the authority, finally, which is supposed to, as on today, approve or disapprove a new homeopathic drug, which is entirely an so-called an allopathic body, which does not have knowledge or expertise about homeopathy. So, as a result, these allopathic guidelines, such as NDCTR and GCB guidelines, which are actually made for allopathic medicines, they have been imposed on developing or approving homeopathic medicines. So, it's not going to work. That is the biggest problem why we are not able to get the approval of this new drug, because the CDSCO is trying to evaluate it as per the allopathic guidelines, while this is the homeopathic medicines. EUA, that is Emergency Use Approval. Have you ever heard of this? Did you ever think of this? EUA is a mechanism world over for approving, say, vaccines for emergency use. All the vaccines were approved as per the EUA guidelines. Why don't we have EUA guidelines for homeopathy? This is the question that we should ask. Senior homeopathy practitioners must ask. People at HMAI and other homeopathic associations must ask. Why don't we have EUA, emergency use approval? Role of CCRH. CCRH is a powerful body. This is the only technical small body that we have. We have some of the officers of CCRH, former director Dr. Manchanda and others. CCRH, in my view, is like ICMR. It has the potential to grow as ICMR, Indian Council for Medical Research for allopathy. Why don't we have CCRH as powerful and as capable as ICMR? That is a big question that you should ask. There is lack of awareness about the scope. We homeopaths believe that there will be some genus epidemicus who aake usse apna uddhar ho jayega. It doesn't work that way. We need to know and develop the scope for such medicines. We have to know what are the rights that we have. As a practitioners, as a professionals in homeopathy, we need to know about our rights and need to have a courage to ask for our rights. Getting an approval for the Nosode is our right as a citizen of this country. After having done adequate work, and we must ask for it to the government. There is a lack of voice. Please look at the last sentence here. There's lack of voice. We realize that we did not have adequate voice. हमारी कोई आवाज ही नहीं थी. होम्योपैथी के बारे में कुछ कहीं नहीं लिखा होता था. In the entire media, देखो आप last 2.5 years, at the most some places arsenic was mentioned, and people were WhatsApping the photos of some echinacea or something here and there. We did not have voice. We lost the opportunity. So what did we miss? What did we miss by not having the Nosode, which had already worked, by not making it a mainstream medicine? We had a chance, a huge chance. We had the biggest ever opportunity in the history of homeopathy of using homeopathic Nosode for the pandemic. Pandemic comes once in 100 years. We missed that opportunity. We could have, by making it work globally, we could have drawn the attention of the entire world. Homeopathy could have received better acceptance if the Nosode was approved on time. There should have been a big revolution if this had happened. This could have brought in a paradigm growth for the entire science of homeopathy. Now, what is the solution and strategy? I'll just take a couple of minutes more because it is very important. Solution and strategy. The strategy is very simple. We need to have a unity. We need to have a voice. We can create a voice only if we have unity. We need to know our rights, and we have to have this is a wake-up call for me and for everybody. I've been practicing homeopathy for the last 37 years, sincerely, every single day, and researching homeopathy for the last 25 years. And I know this is a wake-up call for all of us. We need to demand separate rules for new drug regulation from the government of India. We need to demand. Nobody is going to give us anything. Homeopathy is taking a back seat with Ayush. Please be informed, all the homeopaths, students, everybody. Ayush is becoming, unfortunately, Ayush. We are losing H from Ayush. We need to demand approval for the Nosode. It is still possible. One small thought that I must share with the people who are all relevant here, senior people are sitting here, and I must say that we have homeopathic associations across the country. HMAI, IIHP, IPH, GHF, IHK, and whatnot. We are all scattered across the country. It's like scattered homeopathic pills here and there. We need to put and join hands together and make one single voice, a single body. I don't understand politics. Let's keep politics away. This is time for us to join hands in whichever way possible. Create some mechanism whereby every organization may retain its identity, but still we are able to join hands. This is exactly what happened in 1947 when Sardar Patel joined all the small Rajya or small states and made a country. Otherwise, India would not have evolved as a huge country. This is the time to do that. And the scope of work for such organizations should be professional excellence. We need to bring professional excellence for the homeopathy practitioners. So we have to address the homeopaths, we have to address the government by bringing changes in the policies, education, etc. And we have to support the public by creating more awareness and support about homeopathy. This should be the scope of homeopathic associations, in my view. Thank God, not yet fully missed. So we have missed the opportunity of using the Nosode to great extent, but still we have not fully missed it. We have phase 2 and phase 3 trials which were repeated on 3,000 people and 14 different sites across the country. And I'm happy to say that we are very close to conclude this study, and in a month or so we will have some outcome of the results. This study we have followed all the GCP guidelines, all the guidelines which are identical for vaccines. We have followed all the allopathic guidelines, so to say, because homeopathic guidelines are not in place. So we followed allopathic guidelines to conduct the homeopathic study for the Nosode. And I must say that the good news again is that the world's first homeopathy startup we have initiated, which is dedicated to new drug research. And this startup is called Biosimilia. This startup took birth during this COVID time, and we decided to devote all the time and next many years for this particular work. Last is, finally, homeopathy, in my view and in my experience, is in a critical stage. Let us not be happy with some cases getting cured here and there, random cases in practice. It's not enough. It is in the critical stage. And the only solution is we need to bring a scientific evolution in this system of medicine if you want to make our next generation accept homeopathy. If you want your children, your grandchildren to practice homeopathy or take up homeopathy as a profession, we will have to bring a scientific revolution.